protect depositors? Two questions directly to you. I don't know if you want to take them from there or come up to the podium as well. Might be best to come up to the podium.
I'll start with the last one, whether there are adequate measures to protect the people with more than 10 million. Clearly, it may appear that the same procedure that is trying to protect the depositor turns out to be counterproductive if the same depositor has to wait for the central bank to liquidate assets, to recover loans. The question is, who pays for the time the depositor has to wait when they're out of money? It may appear that that same system does not cater for that time that I'm out of my money until the central bank is able to address. So the central bank needs to again relook at their mandate, because if on a daily basis they are looking at the capital of the bank, the quality of the assets, the liquidity, as you've said, the quality of management, they are able to see the trend. But what they are not able to do is to indicate to the depositor that, please do A, B, C, D. So for that period, I feel that the central bank has work to do. The other question was about consumer protection. It's clear that the depositors need to be sensitized more on where they can run to. What is it that they must know in the banking game? And that takes me to my question to the doctor. I don't know if it's because the banking sector continues to be one of the most profitable sectors, in spite of the fact that we show some statistics that the economy is not doing very well. People are migrating investments to nearby countries, but we still see the banking sector very profitable. I think, if I'm not mistaken, between the return is about 15% or 20%. Where does that profit come from? Thank you very much.
Good question to you. At the break, we will post a link to the COSASE report on bank closures of 2021, and I'll go back to Dr. Gesa and ask him if it was wrong to close Crane Bank and wrong to close Mercantile Bank, excuse me, considering the reports that were given at the time. So in the few minutes we have left, maybe Dr. Muhumuza, think about organizations like SACCOs, like, for example, if you have a SACCO like Wazalendo, then if you have, I won't call NSSF a SACCO, but are we all in NSSF? Because, did someone say no? Because if you're in NSSF, that means you also have money in Mercantile, but Crane was paid off. So what happened? What about unit trusts and so on? And NSSF would probably have a lot more money than the 10 million. Dr. Mumza.
Well, maybe it's effectively a question of relativity. NSSF may have billions there, but they have other recourse because they receive billions every day or every month.
So it's okay to lose these billions?
Not lose them, they can accommodate the delay he's talking about.
Yes.
Because sometimes the challenge with NSSF is actually liquidity. Where do I put my money? Which is not my case and your case. Especially as he has indicated, if this was your bank and every day that's where you go to pay off your normal business duties. So you're not only going to do the 10 million, but you pay your service providers, you pay umeme, you pay rent, you pay your laborers using that bank account. Now that bank account is not there. Literally your business will be stalled and annihilated. By the time you get back your money, and that process that Director Gesa has displayed to us, you may not recover all the money. As I said, some of the assets may be not recoverable at all. So it is even possible that you sell the bank assets and what the bank owes to its stakeholders is more than what you have realized. Eventually somebody will make a loss out there. But those are the hardships and hazards of some of these institutions. And that's why, as we say, the Bank of Uganda requires, strictly by law and its own procedures, that every bank must have an external auditor who has been approved by the central bank, and the external audit report must be published. And if you have noticed, throughout the month of April, banks are publishing their audit statements. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been told why that is so. Many people want to know. They won't even bother the papers to check how did my bank perform, because you can actually see a trend there and begin to say, wait a minute, this bank was making those profits, and those profits, where are now the profits going? What are its assets? They put all that information there for public consumption to use. And this is what Kigo Thinkers needs to be credited, that we are now here to tell people, during the entire month of April, please pick those papers over the years and check what is the health of your bank. Where are the banks making their profits from? Most of this, as I've shown in that last slide, a lot of this money is coming from government borrowing. Because remember, when I lend to government, I don't even have to ask for a title. I don't have to chase. It's a sovereign. The government will pay, and pay is on the dot. So if the government 10-year or 15-year bond or 20-year bond is 16%, and as a bank I commit 100 billion to government, at the end of the year this government is going to give me 16 billion as profit. Now that is even taxed at 10% if it is more than 10 years. Yet if you run a corporation like Tulip, where we are, they will be taxed at 30%. And that's why I was saying, the skew, the signal in the economy is telling people, don't invest in production of shoes, of onions, and carrots. You'd rather put your money with government, go on the golf course, and wait for your money in your bank account. But remember, people still want onions to eat. They still want shoes. They still want textbooks. They still want pens and notebooks. So Tanzania will bring them in.
And work.
And make that money. So the signal we are giving is systemically, continuously undermining the very same space where the banks themselves are sitting. And as I said, whatever they are reducing, which we saw in the numbers, whatever they are reducing as lending to the private sector, they are increasing their lending to government. Now you have to ask Mr. Government, what are you doing with this money? As I indicated, 60% of it is going back to service the debt. So it's not helping us. So it can't come to the roads. Now how do you get out of that situation? It's not going to be, well, the sun will resolve it. No, the sun will keep rising and setting. Resolution of this is going to take people sitting down to see how do we deal with government spending and where it is spending. So the situation is more than what the central bank can do. The situation requires restructuring and rethinking of the entire government, and I don't see those conversations happening.
Thank you very much. Let's stop for the break. We'll stop for 2 minutes and then kickstart the conversations again. But just a quick answer. Does the central bank have responsibility to advise the bank, for example, the economy, to advise government on the government taking loans?
It is the advisor to government. Now, whether the government is also part of government, some people will say, but it has its independence, but it's the advisor to government. And I think it does that. The rest is political economy spaces.
Thank you. We stop for a break.
Uganda's banking sector has experienced significant challenges, resulting in several bank closures. Economic instability, poor management, fraudulent activities, and insufficient capital could have triggered these closures. Bank closures have far-reaching consequences for individuals and economies alike. The loss of deposits can lead to significant financial hardship for depositors and investors, eroding savings and impacting consumption patterns. Moreover, these closures disrupt economic activity for businesses and investors, resulting in the banking system, resulting in several bank closures. Economic instability, poor management, fraudulent activities, and insufficient capital could have triggered these closures. Bank closures have far-reaching consequences for individuals and economies alike. The loss of deposits can lead to significant financial hardship for depositors and investors, eroding savings and impacting consumption patterns. Moreover, these closures disrupt economic activity for businesses and investors, resulting in the banking system's loss of confidence, further destabilizing the economy, deterring investment, and exacerbating financial challenges. It's against this background that Kigo Thinkers Baraza recognizes that Uganda has taken proactive steps to bolster its banking sector's resilience and protect depositors. But how can faith in banks be restored? By imposing stricter capital requirements on banks, the regulatory authority has ensured that financial institutions maintain robust financial buffers. Join us for a live broadcast this Thursday, 1st August 2024, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
The problem is when he comes up here is on a platform. You can sit down and face them, yes. Or you could sit down.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for the question. I would just take it from a practical point of view, because these days I don't do much of the theory in the economics. I'll pick it from one of the questions which you asked about or commented about the NSSF, who are holding a lot of money, and the thresholds of those who are above 10 million. And I believe, and I start thinking, why over 10 million? The policy, maybe when it was being formulated, it was probably assumed that if somebody has maybe more than 10 million in the bank, he has to be very frugal and prudent, that he has to periodically assess his risk appetite. And I think also the underlying assumption, I may be right or wrong, the underlying assumption here may be that he has access to information and he can do the risk analysis. But from a practical point of view, is that the case? Is the regulatory framework consistent with the practices and what we have on the ground? My straight answer would be a no. Because as you correctly put it, if NSSF never had his money locked up, say in a crane, its operation will still continue because he will get new money coming in, especially around this time, which we have just ended the month, new money coming in every day, and then he has other options. But also we assume that NSSF will have very competent risk managers who will look at the market and also gather information, and then critically look at all those information which are regularly published at the end of the year. Even they will go and look at the provisions and even the maybe the daily reports and all that. So for us in Chinatown, we don't have that capacity. So we will depend on the decisions which have been made by the policymakers or the bankers, and whether they are doing inside dealing. It may be not very possible for us to determine, and if the money is lost. And whatever is also being said, that there is a process which, as a regulator, has to go through before that. That information is privileged to very, very few policy makers, if not highly guarded. And so you never get to know some of this information, however much you may have the risk analysis skills. For now, I can stop there.
Thank you very much. And I don't know who's going to answer. Maybe Dr. Egesa will go first. My question earlier was Bank of Uganda wrong regarding Crane Bank? Was Bank of Uganda wrong regarding Mercantile Bank? Shall we get information later on that Bank of Uganda was wrong? There are two premises for asking this question, Dr. Egesa. The first one is Crane Bank seems to be winning cases in court. I would dare say most of the time, I don't know. And the COSASE report of 2021 did indicate in many areas where Bank of Uganda was wrong.
That's a very loaded question.
It's Bank of Uganda.
Let me start by saying I cannot comment on individual institutions, but I'll give some general remarks concerning that very loaded question. The Bank of Uganda does not close a financial institution without going through the right process and without being sure that this is the only way out. And of late, the banks that have been closed because there was poor governance, directives were given that were not followed, there was high concentration of both either deposits or loans, which raised the risk status of that institution, and most importantly, the owners abdicated their role of ensuring that these institutions continue to run smoothly. And under such circumstances, if we went out and told the depositors, we are going to close this institution because it has this problem, and this problem, there will be no money by midday of the next day for those who can access. And that means that all other processes will run into problems. That's why we can't come out to tell you that we are going to close a bank or we have started the process of, following up on this bank because we've seen this. But there are reports that come out. On our website, there's a lot of information that's there. If as an individual you're not capable to understand that information, but you put 5 billion in a bank, get your accountant, get a financial advisor and say, hey, pay that person 1 million shillings. After all, you have 5 billion. Tell them, read for me this report and tell me what you see. But I also accept that as BOU, we have a role. We have a role to do financial literacy, and these are some of the lessons we are taking out of some of these experiences. We've been doing financial literacy in other areas, but maybe we need to start also educating people on how to, assess the institutions they're involved in, or where they are putting their money.
Yes.
So that was the first.
You expressed it, you responded very well, and building on what Dr. Mumza had said. But I think the pain points are now the 10% share, not shareholders, but depositors above the 10 million mark. And sometimes their monies may be substantial, so they've had a substantial loss in the, like Mr. Mtevi said, in a delay. Or is there a chance that they may not get their money at all?
I want to reassure the depositors that have more than 10 million that they will get a payment. At this point, we can't comment whether they will get everything or they will get some of it, because ultimately it depends on what's going to be recovered. But let me also say that this is the first time in a long while that depositors who have more than 10 million are going to go through this. All the previous closures, with the exception of Greenland, the early ones, either a bank has been sold off to another bank or government has come out and guaranteed to pay the rest. So EFC, Crane Bank, depositors didn't lose their money. For Mercantile Credit Bank, unfortunately, government has not, for whatever reasons they have, agreed to bail out those who have more than 10 million. So our hands are tied. We have to go through the process as per the law.
I'll come back to the second question to you, Dr. Gesa. So, Dr. Mumza, so this may seem that it is more of a political decision to pay 10 million and less because there are many, but also above 10 million because they have bulk money, they can wait. Is that where it ends? Because Dr. Gesa says government has not come back to us, but Dr. Gesa is also government.
Well, government doesn't have to come in. As we said, the rules of the game were clear. We guarantee 10 million, and everybody knew it. Beyond 10 million is going to be subject to how much can we recover from this bank. And as I've said, if the governance and management of the bank was risky, they could easily have lent money to a general. Now, Director Gesa here and his team and whoever is going to help him on liquidating will depend on whether this general can actually pay back the bank the 200 million he took so that they can pay the depositors. So those are the complications now. Sometimes politics can come in and the president can say, pay them all their money. This happened, as I said, with Greenland Bank. I don't think we even had the deposit protection by then. I was going to lose the entire thing. But the president simply said, pay them. And he had his own political reasons, because now the reasons for that cease to be derived from the banking sector practices and laws. The president will be looking at something else. But also he has first to see in the treasury, is that money there? What if now he gives it and we need some 600 billion to pay all for these people? Is it there? So there are many things that will come into that kind of space. I think within a cooperative bank, they were compensated out of that political decision. So the political decision may be there, but the willingness is there, but is the ability to pay at that point in time there. As I've indicated to you, the government budget is possibly also constrained and strained up.
And just before you leave the microphone, because the bigger problem is, if you take Uganda economy right now, you have traders wishing to demonstrate over EFRIS. The management of government is saying, wait, you have a scheduled meeting with the president. And then traders, many of them would have more than 10 million in any one bank. So there's a big economy issue there as well.
Exactly, and who knows, maybe part of Mercantile Bank's challenge was the traders went to demonstrate and they couldn't sell, so they couldn't pay back the loans. You begin to see that it can be both ways. The effects can go to different directions, and I think that's what Gesa was trying to say, concentration of depositors. One of the things the central bank tests for is a bank must not have big depositors owning most of the deposits. Because if the bank has 100 billion in deposits, but it belongs to Mhumza and Oscar, we can decide to go to another bank. Now that bank will automatically collapse. So they always check for that to say, you seem to have a concentration of depositors. Same story with borrowers. You are not supposed to have few borrowers who are responsible for all their loans. What if they go under? So as he has indicated, the process is always moving on, and the central bank always advises, there is this risk here, can you address it? There is a risk here, can you address it? But those are internal things that they keep going on. So by the time they really act, time has passed, and both management, board, and maybe even the shareholders of the bank have not really responded. I think the main thing now is how do you keep the customers informed, the public informed, that when this information comes out, please take note. Don't go to a bank because it belongs to your clan, because it belongs to your tribe. I keep hearing many Ugandans saying, we don't have local banks. No, I don't go to a bank because it is local. I go to a bank because it can give me the trust to keep my money. If its shareholders are shaky, it doesn't matter whether it belongs to my clan or tribe or country. I'll move on with a bank that I can trust. It's about trust.
Thank you. To Dr. Gesa, to have it less loaded, the question. So have you followed recommendations of the COSASE report of 2021?
The question seems more to seem more loaded than, but let me, we took the COSASA report very seriously, and we have recommended almost all the recommendations, but just highlight some of the key recommendations that came out which we have addressed. The first one was to adjust our resolution mechanism, to make sure that there are dedicated teams for resolution, to make sure that there are guidelines on how resolution should be done. I'm sure some of you had statements made that Bank of Uganda sold banks using phones. So we addressed all those comments to do with the resolution mechanism in the bank, and this is what's guiding the recent bank closure. So that has been implemented. There were issues to do with the amendment of the law, which are still pending because we don't have control on the process for amending the law. We have made our recommendations. The process is ongoing, but there are parts of that process that we don't have control over, but when that process is completed, I think that will tie up what's remaining. All the other issues that we needed to do internally have been addressed.
Thank you very much. And now we have an open session. I don't know if there are people here who would like to ask questions. You introduce yourself and ask a question or make a comment. Madam at the back, do you have a mobile microphone? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Petra from Chigo Thinkers. Thank you, Dr. Fred and Dr. Ken. My question is on corporate governance. I think it will be directed to Dr. Ageesigika, or stewardship. Us who work in trenches downtown, we see bankers, the managers, whom we love to give our money, living flamboyant lives. Yes, children in international schools drive the latest SUVs and so on. And I'm sure, Dr. Ken, during your supervision, you have that early detection to know that this bank is going under because of the people who are superintending it. Now, in downtown, we say bazanyira mu sente zaffe. Simply, now, Dr. Ageesigika, do you ever punish those people? Because they are the ones leading us to ruin. And you can easily find out that this bank mainly has gone down because of the people on top. If you did, or if you are not, please do. Because it will be a deterrent to the rest of the people who are in charge of our monies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petra. Yes, over here. And I think the media person, if you come and stand here so that you can capture you. You can stand where he is.
Okay.
Dale
what is my name? I work for Capital and BTFM. Mine is also related to hers. I'd love to know what measures in terms of monitoring and tracking these investors or directors so that when a bank closes, they don't go. Thank you.
And Dale didn't ask the real question he wanted to ask. There's a hand up over there because I know he has 30 million in a bank. So I don't know whether it's mercantile, but he should be looking at how to recover monies.
Thank you. My name is Eric Zachary Mgisha. I'm just a person from the internet. I want to pose a question both to Professor Fred and also Dr. Kenneth. In 2008, when we had the Great Recession, we remember the conversation coming around saying what could the federal government have done to prevent the Lehman Brothers going down. And the question that was if the central bank had intervened then, would it have saved the greater economy? The reason I'm asking this is we know government currently is the biggest borrower for most of the commercial banks. So in the likelihood that, say, a bank like Stanbic goes down, just saying hypothetically, hypothetically, in the likelihood that a bank like Stanbic goes down, the ripple effects of that bank going down do not just take a depositor of 10 million, 30 million, a local depositor, but it also has an effect on government projects, government spending, even the loan that government keeps trying to repay. Because I know banks are very happy right now. They know government can ask for money and they will supply it. Government won't pay in time, but it will pay the interest on that loan. So in the likelihood that such a bank goes down, how do we see ourselves as Uganda operate? Thanks.
A good one. There's Ronnie here still has another question. And in between that, someone is saying, Sam in Kampala says, wow, Ugandan manufacturers may relocate to Tanzania to export back to Uganda. They have done it. Yeah. Can he stay there? You capture him? You got him?
Thank you, moderator. My question goes to Dr. Muhumuza. The issue of bank closure has ripple effect. If, customers cannot access their money, that means business opportunities lost, jobs lost, and so on. 2 closures in a period of, say, 1 year is a signal that something is... A few months. Is a signal that probably the supervision is not working properly. And we've seen that economies like China, there are some sectors of the economy that they have retained as a state to manage practices, to manage sustainability. Is it time for us to think about having the banking sector not entirely left to the market to determine everything that we are discussing here? Is it time to rethink some sectors of the economy, including the financial services sector, being retained by the state? Thank you.
Thank you. Philip wants to add on. Yeah? Oh, yeah, the microphone.
Thank you very much. I just want to put this in perspective based from my colleague here who are from the internet. Just again to put it from a practical point of view, as I said, I concentrate these days on practical economics. If you look at the effect of mercantile closure to the meat packers who are mainly one of their considered depositors, if these things are not restituted in time, it may affect somehow the livestock sector. As much as from the regulatory point of view, they may look at a concentration of the clients in a particular sector. But also you have to take in consideration the location and the risk management. For those of us who deal in the cattle and what, you are compelled maybe to have a bank account in the mercantile, because for meat packers you can access location, okay? And a number of, I think, I don't have the statistics of the curve, but I think a number of the clients in the mercantile banks were those people doing in the livestock related sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. And I dare say that's correct.
Thank you very much. My name is Aloysius Kasoma. I write for New Vision. My question goes to Director Mr. Igesa. I just want to understand, at all tiers, from tier 1 to tier 4, where have we attracted so many investors when it comes to banking? Because looking at the business line, the private sector deals more with tier 1 level circles and among others. So, but the risk looks to be at the level of tier 4. So why have we been able to attract more investors at all tiers? Thank you.
Dr. Gesa, do you want to respond now? And then we'll have Dr. Mumza and then some more questions.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. Let me start with the first one on corporate governance. I think one thing we need to appreciate is that there have been many changes over time. The corporate governance rules 10 years ago have been impacted by some of these changes and have also been updated. So there are things that have come which were not key back then, like cyber risk and fraud, which is one of the biggest things now hitting the industry. So when something like that comes, you also have to adjust the requirements for corporate governance, the audit committees, the credit committees, the operational risk committees of the board. So we are also adjusting as some of these things happen to try and address those problems. But also to reassure you that for someone to become a member of a board or a key manager in any of these institutions, they have to come to Bank of Uganda to get approval. If they are involved in something that changes what we saw when we were agreeing them to come in, we ask them to, we make sure that they leave the sector and they can never come back to operate in the financial sector. So just to reassure you, that's the punishment. If a bank closes, to answer the question that was raised on whether we will allow them to go and operate again, the shareholders automatically are disqualified from participating in any financial institution regulated by BOU. It could be a forex, they could have owned a bank, but will not allow them even to run a forex bureau, as an example. Now, on the issue of Stanbic going down, God forbid, Stanbic Bank and 7 other banks are classified as domestic, systemically important banks. That means that these banks are large and interconnected with other financial institutions, that if they have a problem, the problem will hit the whole sector. Everyone in the sector will be affected. For these banks, we have additional regulatory requirements which don't apply to the other banks that are not classified as domestic, systemically important banks. For instance, their capital requirements will be higher than the rest. They have to provide additional capital for reassurance. Our supervision is more intrusive of these institutions because, obviously, if it goes down, it's going down with a lot of people. So just to reassure you that for these banks, the domestic systemically important banks, like Stanbic, we take even an extra leg to make sure that what we are seeing in the reports, what we are seeing on the ground, speaks to each other, and that they are always well capitalized and provisioned as quickly as possible if there is any issue. So, again, to assure you that at the central bank we are doing everything possible to make sure that these DSIBs are not impacted. And the last one was which tier attracts the most level of investments. I think maybe let's move away from the jargon of tier and say we have commercial banks, credit institutions, MDIs, and circles. Those are the 4 tiers. Okay? Each of these kind of institution has its own business plan that fits within where it is. Otherwise, it will be failing or downgrading to a lower level. So all tiers or all institutions have their own type of investment. Some focus on corporate, some focus on small and medium enterprises, some target everybody. So it depends. I can't say a specific tier addresses one. And the last one on government participation in the financial sector. Government is participating. How? Postbank is owned by government. Housing finance is owned by government. Uganda Development Bank is owned by government. So government has not left the sector. Their pride also is there. So they are operating, maybe we can talk about the scale and maybe targeting specific sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. We have responses on X, formerly Twitter. Viewers and listeners can go there. Someone, Sharon Chwanuka, says, I've learned more about banking in 1 hour than any economics class I ever attended. So, this is a hand clap to the doctors here. Yeah. Then Evermore says, thank you for the information. I have always wondered what happens when one has more than 10 million in a bank account and the bank is closed. Charles Luanga says, for how long? What if a bank fails to sell off the bank's assets? Can I get a share in their buildings? Dr.
Wondering which buildings and who, the buildings of Mercantile or the buildings of Bank of Uganda? Because those are government buildings. By being a citizen, you already have a share there. And you want to protect your share. Actually, sometimes it's very interesting to have these conversations. It might look like a weakness when two banks, okay, financial institutions, they call them banks, of course, are resolved within a very short time. But actually, for me, that gives me the strength to say if the central bank can do this, then it is actually a lot. For some of us who are alive during Museveni's days of transitioning, the other regimes coming in, you are on this hill and there are men with guns. And you are literally running away from the UNLA, Uganda National Liberation Army, who have guns, because they are using them wrongly, to go to the NRA, who have guns, because you think those are using them rightly, and that was the truth at that time. So I want to take trust that the central bank and the regulator is strong enough to identify the weak ones and weed them out. Because one of the things the central bank, and its core mandate is really stability of the entire financial sector, not just of one bank. So if one bank is going to threaten stability of the rest of the sector, like doctors do, they will cut off that leg. Because it has cancer that is going to go to the whole body. So you don't blame the doctor and say, but you cut off a leg. So are you a good person? But he's actually good. So that should give us the trust that the regulator is active. And I always remind people, every bank that runs an advert will always end regulated by Bank of Uganda. They are giving you that trust to say, don't look at us, look at Bank of Uganda. And so when Bank of Uganda acts, that is one of the messages. The thing you really want to engage is what Katamba raised. If the central bank found 25 billion was too low, time had passed. Is 10 million deposit protection not too low? And that's something we can engage. When did we set the 10 million? What was the criteria? Maybe to give trust to more people now, we may want to say, can we raise this to 50 million? What is the implication? Because you want to build that trust. For me, that lessons clearly are coming through. Should government own banks? He has already said the government is already in this space. But if government is borrowing from Stanbic to do its business, I'm even wondering whether government should own a bank. Because that bank would be a branch of Stanbic. Because they will borrow there to come and capitalize. And we've had that conversation. Because government is going to issue a bond, which will be bought by Stanbic, and then they will go to invest in UDB. It brings you challenges. And then you are saying UDB must lend at 12%. But you mobilize this money from the banking sector at 17%. Meaning whoever is borrowing from UDB is being subsidized by me and you. And you want those policy conversations to come through. So what the central bank has done, and it does that very strongly, is to make sure much as government owns these banks, its influence that it used to have with the former UCB is not there. The board of the bank would take full responsibility. You cannot say the Minister of Finance sent as a borrower. You have a right to reject that borrower and leave to continue with your business. So protecting the governance of the government-owned institutions from government itself has been a very, very serious business. What you're seeing ministers interfering with agencies of government, I hear this is what Honorable Kasaija cannot come and do that in the banking sector, courtesy of the central bank's strong hand. And there was a time when Bank of Uganda would only regulate. Now it is allowed to license. Licensing of banks was Ministry of Finance. Regulation was given to Bank of Uganda. Now they have the right to say, come in. If you don't operate like that, get out. And it doesn't matter whether you are a government bank or not, the central bank will chase you. That, for me, gives us the trust that I can leave my 10 million with a bank, including more, and as the more that we are saying, shouldn't we be having that conversation of raising, I think, that deposit minimum?
Thank you, thank you. Any other question, comment? Eric again. And it's okay to confess whether you are 10 million and below or 11 and above.
Thank you again. So this goes to Dr. Ageesigika. In recent months or recent years, we've seen the growth of e-commerce banks. And I do not mean the major banks, but I've seen a lot of platforms that come out to give people loans. We are a bit not sure of their regulation, but recent conversations around people, again, within the fintech spaces, they say there's been delay from Bank of Uganda in okaying their licenses that would offer these banks that are maybe facing closure because of management and their asset value. So my question is, what is the lag between Bank of Uganda and approving most of these fintech aggregators that are supposed to make business for the commercial banks a little easy? And also, the other thing I think we have still in Uganda is the KYC detail with commercial banks and the central bank. We know currently most of the people have national IDs, meaning their records can be tracked with a NIN. If that is the case, why can't I be able to open up a bank account, say with any bank, without the need to visit the bank? A few banks are doing it, but most of the banks keep citing that the regulation with them and Bank of Uganda does not allow them to do that, which, in my case, in my point of view, I think denies them a diverse audience of clients. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Today was not a day for KYC. And I intend to get Dr. Ageesigika on the KYC and URSB and filling in the same forms all the time and the pain that is there. I'm collecting all this pain and we shall have another session on that one. When they now call you to confirm, so it is, if you are running a business in Uganda and they all claim that it is Bank of Uganda, and you wonder why, but maybe you keep that one for when I'll get you in a hot seat for that one. But you could address his first one. In addition to what he's saying, do you feel you answered Petwa's question? Is there a mark where Bank of Uganda says your operations should stop, operation money and whatever, should stop at 20%, giving it some kind of context? And then when you hear, when you see all these robberies taking place, people moving with large amounts of cash, there was one of 120 million. Is this the trust we are talking about? So someone would move with their cash instead of leaving it in a commercial bank. I don't. Yeah.
Just again, in line with what Petwa requested or asked, I think how are we? I think there is a big challenge as far as governance is concerned, and the only way I can quickly sum it up is by looking at two items: what we call the immediate owner. Who is the immediate owner of this financial institution, and who is the ultimate owner of a financial institution? Because most of these closures, based on my simple understanding, they are to do with related party transactions and inside dealing. Yeah? But people are concealing this information, and they appear to be putting on a red shirt, but inside it is white. So I think that's another big problem. And then you touched on the regulatory framework. I still see we have a challenge which we really need to address immediately. The lag between the legal framework it takes to make the changes. Some of these things need to be taken immediately on. Are we going to have like special courts like the ones we have for corruptions? We want to deal with specifically on the regulation regarding financial matters. Because if it takes about an average, I think 7 or 8 years to change an act. I don't know how long it took us to change the Foreign Exchange Act in this aspect. And then by the time it is done and implemented up to now, I think we haven't even done the regulations. But the act has been here for some time, but we haven't done the regulations. So there's always a mismatch. And there's some of this mismatch, the people with bad intentions or with selfish intentions come and exploit this space.
Dr. Muhumuza first and then Dr. Gesa.
I thought they were for Gesa. But a few of them come to me. Well, KYC is really know your customer.
Yes. But I said that's
for people out there. It will be out there. But it's critically important for the bank to know who that customer is and what else they do. And this is what he's saying about who is the ultimate owner. You also want to know who owns this account. What are they doing and those kinds of things. But the challenge the banks will be facing why they can't allow you to do it from your X and cyberspace is because the systems are not integrated. By you sending your name, how do I confirm that this is actually your name? I would need to log into the NERA system. I would need to log into others to see your picture, but also get additional information that's not available. So ultimately, sometimes they need you to see you physically for that safety. Like now, I think one of the challenges that the Mercantile Bank and the Deposit Protection Fund has faced, who do you send this money to? Because people are using other people's mobile phones. So that is the mobile phone number they left with the bank. So you try to send the money there, the name on the bank account is not matching the name on the mobile money because they are using their uncle's kind of number. Those are systemic issues, as we said, that are sitting out there, but also the issue of how fast can we change the laws. I know now we have actually a regulatory kind of challenge because when we set the minimum of which circles should be regulated under Bank of Uganda, we had said every circle above 500 million should transition from the Microfinance Regulatory Authority to go to the ambits of Bank of Uganda. But that was 2008. 500 million was some substantial money. But now, so there are so many, and the law is still being debated on where should they fall. So when I have 2 billion, and Bank of Uganda says you are too small, you are just like a customer in a bank, I can't take you up. But then Umra is saying you are above me. So you want the laws to be proactively very, very frequent because the banking sector evolves quite very fast and things do change very fast. But I think the other part that we need here, and for me it is part of the discussion we are having, you'll find people emotionally saying, why don't we set up an agricultural bank? We have already seen that Mercantile had the bigger exposure to the livestock sector. So sometimes the things that Bank of Uganda would check on those exposures of one sector. You don't want when a sector gets a problem, the bank also feels that shock because the bulk of its customers were in that particular sector. And equally the other way around, that the entire sector is being supported by one bank. When that bank gets a problem, the entire sector gets a problem. So a number of policy discussions that we need to be bringing up here, which the central bank does at operational and strategic level, but they need to be having a conversation at wider policy level of government.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gesa, and you know, in your literacy postings that you promised you're going to start, will you also run adverts that say, don't keep money under your pillow, trust us?
I think let me clarify that although we have had 2 recent bank closures, the financial sector is still very stable. Actually, all banks are now meeting 150 billion capital requirements, and that's big. That means that chances of closing that bank because of capital issues have been more or less addressed. So please keep your money in banks, and We will do whatever we can to make sure that those whose deposits have not yet been paid, they get paid and shift them elsewhere. On e-commerce, I want to reassure viewers out there that we have very clear guidelines for entry. We have very clear requirements, and anyone who meets those requirements will be licensed. Someone telling you that Bank of Uganda is delaying their license is not giving you all of the information. It means that there are certain things they have not fulfilled. And we can't license until you fulfilled all the requirements. So I just want to pass on the message that if you want to access a certain product, a license for a certain product, make sure that your records and all the things you need to fulfill have been done. You will automatically be licensed. On the lag between regulation and passing regulation and implementation, I agree. Some of these take too long. Unfortunately, we have to follow the law, and until the law is amended, for us to remain transparent and accountable, we have to go through that process. So perhaps other agencies of government can do more to help us speed the process.
Thank you very much. We're in conclusion mode. If anyone has a question, comment to make before we invite our presenters to conclude, this is the time to do it. A lot of activity is going on online. I don't know, Eric, if there's any comment you can read for now online. But it seems that there's a lot of traction on the lessons learned and those above 10 million. A lot of this. Someone has whispered to me that switch on your microphone. So why had you not whispered to me to switch on my microphone? There's a lot of traction on social media, on specifically two topics. The education taken from today, and that's a big applause to Chigo thinkers, and any others who are wondering what will happen to them. Dr. Gesa has given assurances. And as I was saying before, if we have any other comments, this is the time to have it. Otherwise, conclusions. Let's begin conclusion. Oh, Philip can make a comment.
One of my final comment on this. I am an advocate of public sector coordination to ensure that the citizens get value for their money. Where you can have public sector coordination, we've been talking about NIRA, we're talking about URBS, we're talking about URA, Bank of Uganda. Bank of Uganda cannot do the roles in timely manner. Why? All this is still in the public sector space. So there should be some very clear, deliberate efforts to have effective and efficient public sector coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Egesa, conclusion. I should tell the audience, viewers, listeners, that television, radio, we work on time. The only other place you find people who work on time is with us, Dr. Muhumuza and Semoya Msuke, because we work in education institutions. In school, the bell rings at the same time for lunch every day. Rings at the same time for supper every day. When you change that bell, you can cause chaos. So we are going to finish at midday.
Thank you, Oscar, for inviting the Bank of Uganda to participate in this. I think for me, the key takeaway is that we need, as Bank of Uganda, to do more financial literacy. This is something I'm taking back. We've been focusing on other areas of financial literacy, but I think this particular area of how to know your bank knows you because they do KYC, but do you know your bank? So I think this is something we'll take up strongly in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Egesa. Also, you know, sometimes teachers of English prompt that your final word, and for you borrowers that have a lot of money, do you know those when we say finish that statement? Yeah.
Well, for those depositors that have more than 10 million Uganda shillings, I think you need to take more interest in knowing the institutions you're in, assuring yourself that maybe you need to distribute your risk. Probably, if you have 100 million, probably put in other banks some of that money. And we also take on board the comment that came through that perhaps it's time for the Deposit Protection Fund to start thinking about increasing this. But we feel the pain, and as I said, this is usually the last thing that we do, that's closing the bank, but we take on board all the lessons that have come through. And we continue learning as a learning institution.
Thank you. Dr. Muhumuza?
I think maybe two key messages. One is the close of bank should give you, sort of for those who have been affected, but it should give people confidence that the banking sector is safe. The central bank is doing what it's supposed to do. We parted with our own relatives. We put them into isolation because they have COVID. And if another one turns up with COVID, you also take them in isolation. That made the families safer, much as we have put away some of the people you love and you would want to see. So this should be interpreted as strength of the financial sector in Uganda. Keep your trust in there. But also don't just watch your bank. As I indicated earlier, your bank is part of the broader economic risks. Even those who have invested in banks that are strong have lost their own businesses for other reasons. So please be alert on what is happening in the economy, the sector you are in. You can be hit by anything. Don't just watch your bank, but also be sure how is your bank watching the economic environment. When you see that corner, don't just end up in the till to put or get the money out. Sometimes it takes good to talk to the bank manager. What do you see in the economy? Because remember, they see a lot within that economy. So when you get to the bank, it's not just about the transaction.
Will tell you?
The bank manager can give you idea on what is happening in a specific sector. Many times we just submit a loan. I want to borrow and do poultry, but you haven't asked them what do you see in the poultry sector. Because remember, your success is their success. So some of these bank managers will actually alert you and have a conversation with you that we see these challenges coming up in the school system. You are in the school business. How have you prepared for them? Drive them into that conversation. A good banker should have that relationship with the borrowers. If they don't, they too are carrying the risk. So please extend banks and make them your sources of information for many other things that you do in your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhumuza. We also want to thank sponsors of Chigo Thinkers. This hotel, Golden Tulip, one of the sponsors. The media stations, Capital Radio, one of the sponsors. We should give them a hand clap, as I mentioned. Bouquet de TV, one of the sponsors. BBS, one of the sponsors. NTV, one of the sponsors. We thank you very much. Thank you once again, Dr. Egesa, Dr. Muhumuza, and everyone who has said something at this event, at this baraza. We thank you very much. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke. You can follow us at Chigo Thinkers. There's a dash somewhere there on X and at Semoyamsoke. Thank you so much, and we shall invite you again. Thank you.
Uganda's banking sector has experienced significant challenges, resulting in several bank closures. Economic instability, poor management, fraudulent activities, and insufficient capital could have triggered these closures. Bank closures have far-reaching consequences for individuals and economies alike. The loss of deposits can lead to significant financial hardship for depositors and investors, eroding savings and impacting consumption patterns. Moreover, these closures disrupt economic activity for businesses and investors, resulting in the banking system's loss of confidence, further destabilizing the economy, deterring investment, and exacerbating financial challenges. It's against this background that Kigo Thinkers Baraza recognizes that Uganda has taken proactive steps to bolster its banking sector's resilience and protect depositors. But how can faith in banks be restored? By imposing stricter capital requirements on banks, the regulatory authority has ensured that financial institutions maintain robust financial buffers. Join us for a live broadcast this Thursday, 1st August 2024, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.